Is Ben Simmons a superstar? Let's get into this.
Dosage. Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetic.
Quickly before we get the video started, if you guys enjoy this video and want to see more NBA content just like this one, hit that subscribe button and that post notification bell. Anyways, back to the video. The Philadelphia 76ers were trying out the Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons experiment for about 2 or 3 seasons at this point. And I think that's plenty of time to figure out if that would work or not between the two guys. And looking at the results of the Sixers over the past 3 or 4 seasons, it definitely isn't exactly what you would like to see. Basically, each one of the 3 seasons, what the Sixers are a very good regular season team where the duo of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid is certainly good enough to not only get them to the playoffs, but actually be a pretty high seed in the Eastern Conference and get home court advantage in the first round. But where their struggles really come into play is during the NBA playoffs. But as I mentioned before in the video, the Sixers are definitely good enough to not only make the playoffs, but be a pretty high seed in the Eastern Conference. So the first round playoff matchup is usually a given that they're going to win that series, but really where the playoffs start for the Sixers and where their struggles start is in the second round of the playoffs. In the second round, unlike the first round, now it's a lot more of a competitive matchup for the Sixers, and there's a way more real possibility that the Sixers would actually lose to whatever team they're versing in the second round, rather than in the first round, of course. And now when the Sixers are playing a much better team in a playoff setting, their true fundamental flaws really start to show. And the real fundamental flaws on the Sixers team, but specifically between Ben Simmons and Embiid, is the fact that Ben Simmons just can't shoot whatsoever. Embiid has the ability to catch and shoot from that 3-point area in the pick and pop, or maybe even just spot it from the corner or the top of the key. He has the ability to do so, but where Embiid is most effective is in the post. But when you have a guy on your team like Ben Simmons who completely can't shoot from anywhere and won't even give the threat that he would be able to shoot, that really hurts a guy like Joel Embiid. Because now when Embiid is cooking in the post, cooking whatever defender is guarding him, the guy who's guarding Ben Simmons can easily just drop down and send a double team easily to Joel Embiid, and it's not like Embiid can kick out to Ben Simmons for a wide open 3-point shot, because not only does Ben Simmons not have the ability to shoot it, he won't even shoot it whatsoever. So that becomes a huge issue for Embiid specifically. And I think after the years of just making it to the playoffs, being good enough during the regular season, but not good enough during the NBA playoffs, in my opinion, I think it's pretty clear at this point that the Ben Simmons Joel Embiid experiment just doesn't work, and they need to move on from one of the two guys, and clearly it's going to be Ben Simmons. And besides just the experiment not working on the court, there have been a ton of issues off the court with Ben Simmons and the Sixers. Of course, after that playoff performance against the Atlanta Hawks, the Sixers lost that series obviously, but Ben Simmons specifically had an awful series, probably the worst playoff series of his career, and overall his season last year was definitely not a good one. And immediately after that series ended, there was already rumors that the Sixers were looking to trade Ben Simmons, and Doc Rivers had made some comments that he doesn't think, or he wasn't sure if Ben Simmons could be a championship point guard. And perhaps those comments hurt Ben Simmons' feelings, and not too long after those comments were made, and all the rumors going around that the Sixers might be looking to trade Ben came out himself and says he wants to be traded from the Sixers and didn't want anything to do with them. And I think it was pretty clear to most NBA teams and most NBA fans that it made a ton of sense, not only due to the on-court issues, but also now due to the off-court issues, that the Sixers really had to trade Ben Simmons over the offseason. But of course, the Sixers were asking for way too much in return for Ben. They were asking for 3 first-round picks and 2 really good impact players going forward, which nobody was going to give up for Ben, especially coming off the worst season of his career and worst playoff performance of his career for sure, and his value was at an all-time low. So predictably, no NBA team was willing to offer that trade for Ben Simmons, and then Ben Simmons was still on the Sixers throughout the entire offseason, and now when you look up, the regular season has just started and Ben is still on the Sixers, and this is kind of where things started to escalate. There was a situation where Ben was in practice because he was forced to go. First he didn't want to go, but he was forced to because he didn't want to get fined more money, and once he was at practice, he wanted nothing to do with the Sixers clearly. He had a phone in his pocket, just not doing drills, not paying attention whatsoever, and head coach Doc Rivers actually kicked him out of the practice, and basically at this point, Ben is not even going to show up. He's suspended for a bunch of games. Apparently he's hurt. I don't know if that's real or not, but basically Ben is just not playing for the Sixers at this point. And honestly, I think everybody deserves some blame. Of course, Ben deserves some blame because honestly, he probably should be playing for the Sixers. He's kind of acting like a baby, to be fair, and he's just not handling the situation well whatsoever. But it's not only him. Of course, the Sixers also deserve some blame because the Sixers were the team that put out the trade rumors initially originally that they wanted to trade Ben, and now you implant that into his head, and now he's thinking going forward, if he does stay with the Sixers, that this team wanted to trade me at some point, and any player would have some effect and react some way to that, of course. And if the Sixers just traded Ben during the offseason and just focus on building around Embiid, there would be no issue. We would not be talking about this right now. The Sixers would have got a decent return for Ben. Maybe they would have got some draft picks, maybe some nice young talent to really help build around Embiid, and the Sixers could just now focus on building around Embiid, obviously, and winning a championship through him. But of course, they were just asking for way too much during the offseason, which was completely unrealistic, and now we have this whole situation with Ben Simmons and the Sixers. Now, personally, what do I think the Sixers should do? I think they should have traded him during the offseason, but currently at this point, the Sixers just have to trade Ben already. I don't know why they're still holding him. He's never going to come back and play for you, and even if he does, it's going to be a similar situation to Harden in Houston in his last season, where he was playing for the Rockets, but he wasn't really trying hard, and he obviously wasn't playing him the way he really truly does, and he didn't care about playing for the Rockets, and eventually he got traded to the Brooklyn Nets. I think if Ben does come back to the Sixers team, he's just going to create more distractions rather than good play on the court. So at this point, just for that sake, I think the Sixers just have to trade Ben already. But now let's get to the question of the video, which is Ben Simmons a superstar in this league? So before we can answer that, let's analyze his game point by point to see really what he does. So in terms of his own scoring ability, he definitely has a really good ability at driving all the way to the basket, and once he gets a full head of steam going downhill, he's very effective at either dunking over the defender or finishing around them with crafty layups. And Ben basically playing that point guard position at that 6'10 size just gives him such an advantage over basically whoever would be defending him. But also, besides just getting downhill and dunking over you or finishing around you once he gets to the basket, Ben also has the ability to post up, which is very unique for that point guard position. He has a pretty good hook shot within his game with either hand actually, either left or right, and he also has somewhat of a floater game as well, which I mentioned in a lot of my videos. Basically every point guard needs to have that within their game, and I think we all know this, but Ben is basically just an inside point guard at this point. He has the inability to shoot mid-range shots, and of course he has the inability to shoot those three-point shots, which really hurts out his team in a lot of different ways for the Sixers specifically. But besides his lackluster shooting, Ben does have the ability to pass very effectively, and he's one of the better passers we have in the NBA. The real benefit of Ben's size, athleticism, and just being a point guard with the ability to pass is he can easily get a rebound on the defensive side, quickly push the ball up the court, and pass to whatever teammate is wide open, either in the corner or driving to the basket, or he can just finish by himself after getting a rebound. I think Ben doesn't necessarily get enough credit for how good of a passer he is, just because he's such a bad shooter in general. But Ben's passing ability, in my opinion, is certainly one of the best we have. But on the defensive side, this is where Ben really shines. He's one of the better defenders we have in the whole NBA. In terms of his on-ball defense, Ben is just fantastic. He's always going to guard the opposing team's best player and do a fantastic job at that, as well as he has a great basketball IQ when he's guarding off-ball to really get his hands in the passing lanes and get a ton of steals like that as well. And overall, when you look at the complete package that Ben has, he actually has a very good game altogether in terms of his offensive abilities as well as his defensive abilities. But clearly the main thing that he struggles with is shooting, which is a huge issue, especially in the new age NBA. But do I personally think that Ben Simmons could be an NBA superstar? I think if Ben goes to a team where the offense is specifically built around him and things start to go right for him in terms of his confidence coming back, I think he definitely has the talent to become a superstar. Maybe a lot of people don't think so and can't see it at this point, and I think that's pretty fair based on how he played this previous season and especially during the playoffs. He hasn't been showing that he has the ability to be a superstar, but honestly, I still see that potential that the Sixers saw when they originally drafted him, and I think if he goes into a good situation, he can honestly definitely be a superstar player. What he could do defensively, of course, is fantastic, but specifically what he can do on the offensive side is also really good. If he could eventually work a mid-range jumper within his game and maybe at the very least a threat of being able to hit a three-point jump shot within his game, I think he could be very lethal in this league. But obviously that's a big if, and throughout his whole entire career, he's proven the inability to shoot. So I definitely think that Ben has the ability to become a superstar going forward if he goes to a good situation, but will he do so? That's yet to be seen. We'll see what happens going forward for Ben. But first, he has to figure out the situation with the Sixers and finally get traded. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys think Ben Simmons could become a superstar going forward in the NBA, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe and hit that post notification bell. It really helps me out a lot. Until the next time, peace out, guys.
Dosage. Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetics. Hope you can't go where I'm headed.